Welcome into the latest Betting Weekly Fast Break. I'm Doug Kezirian alongside professional handicapper Wes Reynolds, and we have quite the interesting show coming up. Just one game on today's slate in the WNBA, but there's some interesting developments in the futures market. We're going to get into all that and much more. Wes, good to be back with you on the program.
Yeah, the lengthy WNBA All-Star break, which a lot of the players have been discussing, is most of the teams were in action already last night. So it was really All-Star weekend, not All-Star break.
It's a good point. We had 10 teams in action, so 10 of the 13, 5 games last night, few blowouts, one huge upset. We're going to get into the Dallas Wings momentarily. Albert win on the show yesterday, went 2-0, nicely done. I got 2 3-pointers out of Rachel Banham right out of the gates, 2 for 2 in the first quarter, and didn't make another 3 the rest of the way. Very annoyed in that regard. But we turned the page. We have some interesting matchup today. And I'm really, really intrigued with the futures market. So we'll get into that. And just want to remind everyone, if you like what you hear on our shows, not just this one, but all of the Betting Weekly shows, sign up for the newsletters, exclusive tips, free insider magazine. Sign up for free at bettingweeklystudios.com. And we also want to encourage everyone that the currency we have in the YouTube world is likes and subscribe. So please do that for us. It is free. It helps us. We've passed the 10,000 subscriber mark in the Betting Weekly umbrella on Bet Rivers Network. So it really, really is helpful for you to contribute and do all that. Wes, one game in the WNBA tonight, and it's one of them. The teams involved is a team that played last night, and I just wonder how much of this Atlanta Dream team is a wounded animal, playing without all-star Ryan Howard for the rest of July at least, with a knee injury, that is. So the Phoenix Mercury host them at 7.5 towards the favorite, getting a little juicy at Bet Rivers. Mercury minus 118, over under 163.5. Obviously, we implore recreational bettors, don't focus on what you saw last, which was the Dream sort of fading against a motivated Aces team last night. Back-to-back road games, like you mentioned, not the longest all-star break, and they're shorthanded. How would you play this game coming into Phoenix?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to have anything on the side or the total. I'm kind of trying to figure out what I might want to do in the prop market, because you mentioned the Dream. They lose by 15 last night. Leisha Gray played 36 minutes. Jordan Canada played 35 minutes. So there's a part of me, at least I would look perhaps to play under on one, if or not both of those players. I haven't decided yet. It might be Canada, because I think that the Dream without Howard, and look, I'm not even a real huge Ryan Howard fan necessarily. I think she's kind of inefficient, and her metrics are bad, and a little bit of a chucker.
Carmelo Anthony.
Yeah,
she is Carmelo Anthony.
Very
all-star caliber, good scorer, but volume shooter.
Absolutely, very much a chucker. The 3-point percentage has been below 30% this year. So I was looking maybe at those props, but then I was looking on the Mercury side. Of course, we have Sadhu Sabali back in the lineup tonight, and also Kalia Copper, and I believe before the break it only played 6 games. Looks like she is back tonight, and seeing some action, by the way, on the prop market is Copper at 13.5 points, and that would be a look. I think you could get that at Bet Rivers at minus 134. And then, do I want to fade Satu in the first game back? Because I think she went for All-Star Weekend in Indianapolis for that initial labor meeting with the commissioner, of course, because the CBA is up at the end of the year. But she was not there for the All-Star game on Saturday. She made the team, of course, was injured and could not play. Now she's back. So how much do they press her tonight? Does she play full minutes? And, maybe looking at under 17.5 points. I think could be a way to go there. So nothing I'm doing yet on the side end or total. The side, of course, going to the Mercury with the Dream on a back-to-back. Money has moved to the over as well from the opener.
All right, I do have a same game parlay, and we want to remind everyone about the second chance parlay. Give WNBA same game parlays a shot tonight with second chance parlay promotion. Opt in and get up to 50% of your bet back if your 3-leg WNBA same game parlay loses. That's pretty cool. See the Bet Rivers app for more details. I have a 2-leg parlay, and I'm curious what props you have to maybe make it a 3. Because one thing I do like, and I do think the market is tightening up in the W, and so that means lower thresholds for some of these props is usually advantageous. Because as I learned the hard way last night, Rachel Banham got 2 threes, but not 3. She got them in the first quarter, as I complained about earlier. But I like Gray at least 2 made threes. She had 5 last night. She's really evolved her game. I think she's going to win most improved player this year, taking her game from, reserve all-star to starting all-star and maybe the best guard or having the best season of all guards in the W. Anyways, I like her plus 2 plus threes and the Mercury money line at minus 107. How do you feel about that?
Could see that. And when I was thinking about Gray, like of those two options that I say maybe fade on points, I would rather fade Canada. I think on the points than I would necessarily Angel Gray because she's going to be the volume shooter and the volume scorer really because Griner not really much of a scorer anymore and doesn't even really finish games all that often. So Alicia Gray really has to take the load because Brianna Jones kind of up and down, more of a rebounder and a defender. Sometimes she could have big scoring games, but Hillman off the bench, who's very valuable off the bench, could sometimes have good offensive putouts, but it's usually Gray. And if you think that this is going to be a high scoring game, market certainly does, as it's gone to like 163.5, 164 from the opener. I'm probably not going to fade Gray in anything now that I think about it, but I think Jordan Canada under points certainly worth a look. 12.5 right now. I don't have the VIG in front of me, but under 12.5, or maybe Satu under 17.5 points, because how much do you want to press her? The first game back necessarily, even though it's also the first game back for Copper. And then just looking at the schedule, they do have a trip to New York on Friday night. They have 2 games over the weekend, actually, back east. They got to go to New York and they got to go to Washington. So might we see a minutes restriction for Sabali or Copper tonight?
Yeah, that's always tough because we discussed it yesterday on the show when Jonquel Jones was returning for the Liberty and the minutes restriction component. She ended up having a great game and was the key to the comeback in a lot of ways. So minutes restriction could be high 20s or it could be in the teens, right? You just don't really know. But the same game parlay on the screen, I'm definitely making that an official play. Mercury money line. I just think they're so good. As everyone knows, they're my play to win the championship this year. I talked about it for about a week, 30-1. 20-1. They're now around plus 600. I think with that full lineup and Sammy Whitcomb, really dangerous. By the way, there's some markets out there with Whitcomb being 6th person of the year. It's not an option. I don't think you qualify if you have at least half the game started, and she's close to that already. So I would think that she's not going to get any votes. So I would not, recommend betting that. But that's my same game parlay. But let's take a step back. I think we're bearing the lead here, Wes. We have a team that did not look good, shorthanded, going to face Mercury, who are at full strength. You mentioned the component of minutes restriction. You mentioned the total, you mentioned props. What about the spread, the 7.5? Like, does this team get rolled like they did? They lost by 15 last night. What do you expect from the Dream here?
Yeah, I think it's probably accounted for in the market here. So I don't know if I'm going to go. I don't know if I'm going to go with it. I certainly don't disagree with the move necessarily. Atlanta, by the way, does have until Sunday off, and then they do stay on the road though, where they could travel home and then re-travel, but they go to Minnesota on Sunday, whereas Phoenix, they're getting started with not only this game, they got to go to New York, as I mentioned, on Friday night. They got to go to Washington on Sunday. So Atlanta, maybe has the energy here on the back-to-back. It's always a little bit tough on the All-Star break to immediately make you play a back-to-back, and it's Atlanta that finds themselves in that horrible spot. But Phoenix has a couple big road games going up, and I just don't know how much Sabali is going to play. Like, if anything, I think Copper has been out so long, they need her to play. She's going to have more minutes. And I think Phoenix, without the one guard, is out. Akoa Makani, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, she is going to be out, the rookie. So, maybe a little bit shorthanded there with the guard. They've incorporated Dewana Bonner back into the rotation. She's not starting, but she figured out how to play basketball. Certainly didn't with her short time in Indiana with the Fever, but I digress. That's another topic. But Copper would be the one I'd maybe want to attack from a prop standpoint instead of maybe playing Phoenix here, even though Phoenix, I got to credit their front office. Like, they nailed it with all the question marks they had coming into the season, because we knew the big three were Copper, Thomas, and Satu Sabali. But Sammy Whitcomb, Akoa Makani, Katie Westbeld, Loxa, and also Held have been very solid for this team. And now you have an unknown that makes Phoenix, I think, to your point, a little bit more attractive in a futures market. And we'll get to that discussion in a minute. Thomas, Copper, and Savali, by the way, have only played 78 minutes together all season. So, look out. That's your big three, and they haven't hardly played any minutes together.
Yeah, that is concerning. And the injury, especially Copper, started the year, didn't miss like the first month or so of the season, something along those lines. So always a concern on that regard. Anything jump? You and I are both off the show tomorrow. It'll be Sarah and Albert holding the fort down. Anything jump out real quick before we get into that futures market? I just wanted to gloss over that. There's a few games there. Marina Mabry's expected to return tomorrow. I do lean to the Sun plus the full 6 at home. I think the supporting cast has developed a little bit, having to play more minutes without her, and she comes back. She's such a big lift to that team. I don't think much of the Sparks. They're shaky. They obviously played well yesterday. I just don't think much of them. So I lean to the Sun plus 6.
Yeah, Mystics kind of fell apart late in that game, too, last night against the Sparks. So I would lean to the Sun. Storm Sky, by the way, injury concern, or Skylar Diggins missed the game last night. And I also played the Wings like Albert did on yesterday's program. And it was a no-doubter. 87-63. Arike has one of those games every once in a while where she's scoring and she's efficient, but she has too many where she kind of just chucks up bad shots. But that'll be interesting too at Dallas. Like, or is she going to be part of a trade? But Storm laying points on the road. I don't know if Diggins is playing yet, so no interest in getting involved. Starting to see some movement to the Aces though, as they've won a couple in a row. I see actually one faraway store has them up at 3.5. I think market wide 2.5, including at Bet Rivers. I would wait a little bit on the Fever. I'd kind of maybe be interested in that. That was a tough spot to go to the Liberty with John Kell back and so short after the break. And of course, we know Caitlin not playing and she won't be playing tomorrow. Fever, by the way, in those Stranger Things jerseys tomorrow. That made the rounds on the social media. But with the Fever, they've been a little hard team to read, not only with the Caitlin injury, but what's the dynamic with the team? Like, sometimes it seems like it's great and sometimes it seems like it's not. And maybe it's just social media chatter around Caitlin, because you have like these different groups. You have the Hatelins out there that clearly don't like Caitlin Clark. And then you have like the super fans that are always like, if you say one thing kind of just slightly outside the line about Caitlin, like, yeah, I wish she would go to her right more. Or she always goes to her left. They're like detectives, man. Like, they're digging up family members' comments about Caitlin, like on Facebook. It's like, these people are psychos. Like they really are. Like, I'm a Caitlin Clark fan and I get kind of perturbed at some of the hate she gets, but some of like her hardcore supporters are psychotic, and you got to ignore some of the noise. And that's what I'm trying to do when I'm handicapping this team. But it is difficult a little bit, because there's sometimes you feel like they're unified and, it's a sisterhood, and there's sometimes you think it's dysfunctional. So you never know because they've been so inconsistent. But above 3, I would lean Fever. A roundabout way of saying that.
Yeah, no, good gloss over there. Let's look at the futures market, because I think it's really compelling. Albert and I talked about under 12.5 wins for the Wings the rest of the way, and they, of course, go out and win outright. And like you said, one of those Arike games. Now the market's adjusted, just the juice. It's still 12.5 at Bet Rivers. Unders plus 117. They only play the Sun once more. And Storm, I feel, I mean, first of all, Skylar Diggins didn't play. She was out for personal reasons. I don't know if that's hungover from the All-Star break, but um, not the best look for Seattle. They were kind of dominated from the end of the second quarter on. And I still don't believe in this Wings team. They give up a lot of points. Their upcoming schedule is really difficult. I still like under 12 and a half. Obviously, it's hard not to be a prisoner of the moment because things worked well with Enrique. And part of the reason they only have 7 wins is that she did have some injuries. So now that she's back, can they win 6 more games? Yeah, they could. Um, I still like the under a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know what to do with this team because I think when you look at the Wings in terms of the personnel, like there's talent on this team, right? Paige and Isaiah James, I think is a very good rookie that they're going to want to keep a part of the organization. I think they like what they've seen out of her. You have, of course, Enrique. You have Dejanay Carrington, who at times can be very good, especially defensively. They added Yuru, who I think has been a solid pickup, actually, because she's been putting up some numbers. So they have some talent on this team. Giesel Soder, also the rookie big, who got into a little bit of a tussle, I guess, with Nemeka and Gumake last night. They got tangled up, and Giesel Soder got thrown down. So there are pieces on this team that I like. But I think you've got a young coach who hasn't figured them out how to put them all together yet. And also the fact that might we be seeing Enrique kind of, I don't want to say showcase because I think people know who Enrique Ogunbowale is and know what she's been capable of in the past. But I wonder if there's going to be a trade there with Dallas because I don't think Enrique is part of this team's future. This is all about Paige, I think. So
I've been saying it all year.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, so that's why I'm a little bit, gun shy, even though I think that this team is playing a little bit better. Like they're not getting blown out, I think, really as frequently as they were earlier in the season. They were very competitive in the loss to Vegas. I know they got blown out by the Fever, but they're playing better, I think, than they were. But I don't want to jump in and necessarily buy in because all of a sudden you get a trade and because you've already had one, by the way, this year. Let's not forget Melissa Smith got traded to the Aces, and Dallas picked up like a very high first-round pick. So that's going to end up being a very good trade for Kurt Miller and Dallas and company. But I don't know if I want to get involved yet with all the kind of trying to figure out the pieces down there.
Yeah, I know. You don't want to fall victim, but there's going to be more double-digit underdogs that win outright, right? Like that's going to happen the rest of the way. So I'm just not ready to. It's hard not to react, at least to what you saw, because we knew Paige is good. Like that's not the issue. So maybe they can have it work a little bit. I don't know. I'm just a little gun shy, I guess, would be a way to put it. Well, maybe hold off on that. Hold your powder, as they say. If it got to 13.5, I would play the under. I mean, I think it's just one more game than, from yesterday in the under there. The Valkyries, they're yes, no to make the playoffs. They stumbled into the break 1-4, and that's changed everything, right? They're outside looking in right now in the playoffs. I think it's extremely compelling what's going on with them just because they were such overachievers in the first half. So now what do you do? They are juiced to make the playoffs at -167. For me, it's a no plus 123. I think that's the play if I had to play this.
Yeah, because I think maybe water's finding its level, and they weathered the storm with losing a lot of their players. They had the most players go and play that Euro Cup. I think they had 4 rotation players. The defense is very good, and we saw it. They held Seattle to 67 before the break. The problem is they only scored 58. They had the one game at Vegas that was kind of that wild shootout, but I'm willing to ignore that. I think the defense is good, but have we seen the offense? Have we seen Kayla Thornton, who was on the All-Star team, and Veronica Burton? Have we seen them kind of overachieve? Where it's like, okay, water's going to find its level, and there's going to be a little bit of regression from an offensive standpoint, because I don't know really. It feels like maybe they've reached their ceiling as offensive players. Now Salon is a young player. I think she's going to continue to come along, but I don't know. I think they've been a nice surprise, and Nikazi, certainly top flight for coach of the year, but I'm just looking at the schedule is at least permissible in the next 2 games. They have Dallas at home, then they have Connecticut. They go to Connecticut on Sunday, but I don't know. This team, I think, is very much overachieved. Now they can they stay committed to defense? So if they stay at least committed on one side of the ball, then they're a good like underplay, I think, game in and game out. But I don't know if I trust this offense to hold on.
I agree. And I think some of the shock value they have on opponents, like early in the year when they were surprising teams right at the gates who were kind of maybe going through the motions, that's no longer happening, or at least it shouldn't. But the reason I find it interesting is because they're right now out of the playoffs. Okay. They're the 9th seed right now. The Mystics are the 8th. So you have that factor. Plus, I mean, technically the Sparks are lurking too. Could get Cameron Brink back very soon. So I think there's more ways to win this because 1 through 7, you would think are in the playoffs with the Aces and Fever hanging on by a thread. So it's really kind of a couple teams for one spot, no?
Yeah, it's a little bit of elimination here. Like the Sun, even when Mabry comes back, they're not good. They're not going to the playoffs at all. They're going to continue to probably be the worst team. Chicago, I don't want to say you lose to the Lynx, that's a bad loss, because it's certainly not, because the Lynx, I think, still are the best team in the league, although the Liberty is going to give them a challenge. We could talk about that in a minute, but the Sky have had a couple really bad efforts over the last 2 games. They got blown out at home by Atlanta, 86-49 in a day game. And then they go to Minnesota. It was somewhat competitive in the first half, and Minnesota, I think, started that third quarter on a 13 or a 15-0 run and just put them away. And this was the Minnesota team that was kind of, hung over a little bit from the All-Star with Fee and the Stud Buds, of course, that were all over Indianapolis for All-Star Weekend. That, by the way, being Courtney Williams and Natasha Hedeman. You thought maybe, okay, this is a flat spot for Minnesota. It wasn't flat at all. They got off to a slow start in the first quarter, and then it was game over, I think, really. So I've got concern for the Sky. I don't know if they're going to find a way to put it all together, so I'd rule them out. So, yeah, from a playoff standpoint, as much as the Aces and the Fever are kind of uncertain, I don't know if there's really any value for like a dark horse to say yes to make the playoffs.
So you do like the Valkyries at the no?
Yes.
At plus 123?
Yeah, I would certainly lean that way, because I think the Fever, even without Caitlin, and I don't know how long she's going to be out. She, of course, now has seen some other specialists as well. So that gives you a little bit of pause. It's like, okay, this isn't going to be like a day-to-day deal. Like she's going to be out for a while, and it might be close to 50-50 whether she plays the rest of the season, because you got to look out for, the injury long-term and not rush Japan. Remember that happened to Sabrina Ionescu a few years ago, where, and she's been kind of a confidant for Caitlin and kind of told her and gave her some recommendations because she was out with an injury for a while. So I think the Fever do have enough firepower, though. I'm not going to say, okay, they got beat double digits by the Liberty last night. They were good in the first half, and Kelsey Mitchell's been scoring. Aaliyah Boston's obviously have a good year. I think they have enough firepower to make the playoffs. It's just they're not going anywhere without Caitlin there once they reach it.
Oh, let me ask you. It's on the screen, plus 950 to miss the playoffs. You know this Indiana squad. You've talked about matchups. They really struggle against certain teams, things like that. They're a home dog tomorrow. I mean, is plus 950 worth a flyer?
I guess it could be, maybe worth some pizza money, but I don't anticipate that they're not going to make the playoffs. I was just kind of trying to pull up their schedule here. They have Vegas.
Well, you wouldn't lay the minus 5,000, right?
Absolutely not. And so you'd only bet the no, I think, from that standpoint. But, just looking at the schedule going forward to see if it kind of eases up. They have a long West road trip to start August, but then I think it kind of eases up a little bit in the back half of the season. And they're in a neutral holding pattern, because who knows how long Caitlin is out. Maybe she's back in late August. Maybe she's back in September for the playoffs. I don't think that this is going, like I was saying, this is not going to be a day-to-day thing. I think with her necessarily back, because she's had a couple different injuries. This is the groin issue, but she had the quad issue. She's had a couple different issues, and I guess that's a little bit concerning. That doesn't mean, okay, somebody's got an injury, you write them off for like the rest of time. But, the longer this goes, the more I think, man, there might be a 50-50 shot we don't see her again on the court until next season.
Yeah, I agree. Once we heard the specialist comment, you mentioned the Connecticut Sun, and obviously the landing area for this is a little tight, but their adjusted win total 6.5 at Bet Rivers, overs -132, and unders -103. They get Mabry back. They're only 6-point dogs tomorrow. You and I both lean to the dog, as we had mentioned, but I don't see a whole lot more wins. Their current win total's 3. They're halfway through the season at 3-19, so that's 22 games. The season's 44. I was talking yesterday on the show under, but maybe. I mean, I think it was 7.5 when we discussed yesterday, if I remember correctly. But these are fun. I like discussing this kind of stuff. Like, can they win 4 more games?
I don't know. I'm struggling to find 4 spots. I mean, they could obviously surprise, and we saw them. Who was it they beat? Seattle when they were double digits. They have been
about 1,200 at home.
Yeah, and they've been with the exception of I think the LA game. They've been like 17-point underdogs in like 6 of their last 7 or something like that. This is a mismatch of a roster. They've got a lot of rookies here. They have Tina Charles now in her 15th year, or I believe 16th year in the league. And some nights she's effective, some nights she's not. But I've seen enough of this team. This is not a very good group at all.
Well, Mabry's back, and that's massive. I mean, she's a double-digit scorer. Can run the offense through her. And I wonder how much those role players, I alluded to it earlier, they've improved drastically, but baptism by fire. So I wonder how much better they can play and perform as a team now that Mabry's back, and those role players that were asked to do too much, basically, while she was out, can actually contribute in a lesser demanding spot. So that's what has me intrigued a little bit. So no bet for either of us on that, but it is, man, I mean, then tanking's going to get involved. So there's elements of this. By the way, you mentioned the Sky. The Lynx have their pick this year.
Mm-hmm.
So how about the Minnesota Lynx winning a title and then adding like the number 1 pick or AZ Fudd or someone like that, a top 2 or 3 pick? It'd be incredible to see that happen. But let's look at the Sky. 13.5 wins. Obviously, their offense is really lacking. I don't have an update on Ariel Atkins' injury. She's missed some time, obviously the last game before the All-Star break and yesterday's game. I like Angel Reese. I think she's really taking her game to the next level, but there's only so much they can do. I think Cardoso stinks. I would trade her. She's been a total bust. This front office might be the worst front office in all of sports, how badly they've drafted. Haley Van Lith should never have been drafted. She stinks. There were 5 guards on the waiver wire that have performed better. We mentioned James and Quinterly in Dallas. The Sky have been just terrible. They don't have a lot of options. They don't play Rachel Banham enough, in my opinion. Kia Nurse is too slow defensively.
Too much Kia Nurse. I was just about to say that. Yes.
Yeah, and Rebecca Allen's a nice player, but they really just don't have some automatic buckets. They can go on runs, but they don't have any. Like, Atkins is huge for them. She's their best offensive weapon. But man, this team's lacking. I don't know how many more wins we're going to see out of them.
Yeah, and Rebecca Allen, who you mentioned, who was with Phoenix last year, she's really like their only true kind of like inside out wing. They have a bunch of guards and they have a bunch of bigs they're trying to figure out how to use together. Reese, Cardoso, with Reese's return, Elizabeth Williams' usage kind of got cut a little bit last night. You have Maddie Westbeld out of Notre Dame, who's a rookie, and Onyenware, I should say.
Onyenware, she missed yesterday game. But she's a solid player out of UCLA. I like her game a lot.
Yeah, but they're trying to figure it out. I don't think that this coach is bad, Tyler Marsh. I think the front office is bad, and just it's a mismatch of players. Like, who's your point guard when you don't have Sloot out there? It's not Haley Van Lith. Mariah Jefferson is older, in her 30s. Banham is also 32. So, you don't really, I think they just signed Markeisha Davis to the hardship contract. So this is a team that's really hurting for guard play right now. And I think they're going to stay hurting the second half of the season.
What do you think about their adjusted win total here? They have 7 wins currently, 13. Can they get 7 more wins? I like under. I really do.
I would
Now,
lean
you're
under.
not gonna you're not gonna you're not gonna get the tanking component. Like I mentioned, they don't own their draft pick. I don't think you tank for second round picks, but I just don't think they have the horses. And as awesome as Angel Reese's work ethic is, I just wonder if at some point, like she just is deflated and just
Right.
doesn't just bring it every single possession. I mean, at some point she's human, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Like last night, double double, 11 and 11, also 9 turnovers. Because that's another thing about the social media, and this is like where the Caitlin effect, where you got more eyeballs on you as players and as teams, and really as a league. And some of these people do kind of focus a little bit on social media a lot, and it gets inside their head. And I wonder if Angel Reese, who has shown some skill development, kind of maybe sees all that and pays too much attention to that, and that's certainly something that I think is a concern. Whereas I think Caitlin, like, she doesn't give a damn about any of it. I don't think she listens to any of the noise, but there are some players that clearly do throughout the league, because you have such a brighter spotlight on the league with the television revenue that's going to go up next year, and then the ratings, the attendance, the ticket sales. Every metric has gone up for this league, so that means you got more eyeballs, and you have to be used to that growth, I guess, a little bit. And that's been a tough transition for some.
Yeah, I would play under there. I think that's a decent play with plus money. I'm looking at their schedule. They host Seattle tomorrow, not favored. Host Indiana on Sunday. They won't be favored. They host Valkyries, Phoenix, Washington, Atlanta. Like, there's not a lot of times where they're going to be favored at Connecticut. I'm not sure they're favored there either. It depends on Atkins's return. They host Connecticut. They'll probably be favored in that game. Now, look, this league has a lot of upsets. So just saying they're not favored doesn't mean they're not going to win, because we saw, what was it? Seattle loses a 9-point home favorite last night. So there's nothing automatic here. I'm going to make that an official play. I'm going to play the under and just try to, scoop some, juice there. I think that's a solid play. Sky under 13.5 wins plus 108. I'll make that an official play. And speaking of the Chicago Sky, we always want to encourage you to join the conversation on the comment section. And Petey said, damn Bantam and the Wings. Talking their under wins total, then they win in the road. Classic. I feel your pain. I had the Bantam play as well. Very frustrating as well. So very, very frustrating. But then the breaks, maybe that makes it less likely to pull off another upset in the next game. But those Agumbawala games are going to happen. Wes alluded to it. It happens. And Albert said on the baseball pod, Betting Weekly Hardball, that he leans the Dream and the points tonight. So after performing poorly in Vegas, losing by 15, he likes them with the points. And, we talked about it earlier, Wes, all those players coming back for the Mercury. I'm really excited for the Mercury. I think their ceiling is so high. The pieces just fit. And like you mentioned, you commended the front office. So I'm on the Sky under 13.5 wins. I'm on the same game parlay. Anything else stand out to you that caught your eye as you've been able to flush it out a little bit more and think about, the rest of the card?
Yeah, let me go over Kalia Copper over 13.5 points tonight. And I think that's somewhere in the 130 range right now. I don't have it exactly in front of me, but it's right there. I think she's probably due for a good game. I think you might have a tired Dream, and clearly you have a backcourt that's lacking depth right now with Ryan Howard being out, and you had Jordan Canada play a ton of minutes last night. So I'm gonna go with Copper over the 13.5 points. Lean Canada at under 12.5 as well.
Okay, so I got you on Copper over 13.5 points. I like it. She is really, really good. I don't think people really understand how good she is. Her athleticism jumps off the page, and it's really impressive. And I mean, she's a former Finals MVP, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So
when Chicago won recently, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and she can shoot now. That's something I didn't really fully expect from her. So I've been pleasantly surprised. So it's a little juicy at minus 132, but you'll play the over 13.5 at Bet Rivers minus 132. I think that's a strong play. Alyssa Thomas is going to go back to the distributor role and facilitator. And Sabali, you're right, May is into it, but I think Copper's got to get her land legs back, so to speak. So I think that's a really, really, advantageous play, so to speak.
Yeah,
so
Sabali, I
bravo,
could see they're kind of like not necessarily baby her, but maybe be a little bit slower with her because Copper's been out a little bit longer. So you kind of need to see her and AT and Dewana Bonner, I'm sure, will be part of that, even though her and Copper kind of play the same position. But Copper can play guard and Dewana Bonner can play forward. So, there is a little bit of they could use both at the same time.
Right. Okay. Well, that's going to do it for this edition of Betting Weekly Fast Break. Again, now that the All-Star break is over, we are Monday through Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. Don't forget, Betting Weekly Hardball, also a relatively new show as well. That is Monday through Friday as well, 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. So appreciate everyone tuning in. Appreciate everyone behind the scenes who does all the heavy lifting as well. For Wes Reynolds and the entire Betting Weekly team, I'm Doug Kezirian. We'll see you back here tomorrow.